There was a note I made about Get Going I wanted to mention to you.
Probably everybody's best friend that's in here.
Yeah, well, oh yeah, this is the study I was looking at. Yeah, well, what's in of course, a principal activity of this is the function of tyrosine. Now, tyrosine is an important component, but tyrosine is actually not what's the active component. Tyrosine gets into the bloodstream, goes into the blood-brain barrier, and gets converted to something called L-DOPA. Now, L-DOPA is a mood elevator, and dopamine, these are things as we age we tend to have depleted. So if you can increase the tyrosine getting into the bloodstream, into the brain levels, you increase DOPA levels, you have a significant chance of being, better focused, more alert. And that's why the two products that I was mentioning, BioAlert and Get Going Plus, actually do work together. They both contain the B vitamins that are necessary for that conversion and of tyrosine to dopamine, but they also contain the things that affect the nerve transmission. So with choline, so that those products actually, when we formulated this product, these products, the product was on paper formulated to be a single product in terms of the effectiveness. But we knew there were little different functions, but we also knew we could not put them all into a liquid or to a powder. If you put the choline to a powder, it forms a big, huge clump after a few days. There's just virtually no way. Now what we did is we used a very special form and we put it into liquid. We say, well, if it sucks up water so fast, why don't we put it into a liquid? That would make sense. But you couldn't do it if you use choline bitartrate, which is commonly used in tablets and powders. So we came across a form called choline dihydrogen citrate, which is now a form that nicely works in water. And then, of course, we couldn't put tyrosine in it because it's not at all soluble, and there's no way to micelize tyrosine. So we had to put that into powder form. So Get Going Plus and BioAlert were actually designed to do two things combined. That is, increased focus, increased mental alertness, increased energy levels, increased mood. And that's why these were actually, and that's why Get Going, a lot of people might say, well, how come you don't have that in a liquid? You can't do everything in every dosage form. You try to pick the best for each type of nutrient you're dealing with. So that was Get Going Plus. And then the study I want to tell you about was that there has been some data on looking at tyrosine in terms of regulating emotions. And again, it's the result of increasing L-DOPA. So there has been some studies to say it does help regulate emotions, which is okay if you get too upset in IRS and want to fly a plane into the building. They should have had some tyrosine a little bit earlier, some Get Going Plus. It wouldn't probably stop your anger against IRS, but it might protect your plane. So I think the key is, again, depletion of certain nutrients because of lifestyle, stress, pressure. And stress, by the way, puts a dramatic depletion of B vitamins. Under stress, the body loses significant levels of B vitamins involved with adrenal function. B6 is involved with that. You lose those vitamins very quickly, and B6 is involved in nerve transmission. So when you are under stress, the body depletes certain nutrients that are actually involved in these reactions, including conversion of tyrosine to dopamine, so you feel down and droopy, etc., mentally, and that also is a problem as a result of stress. So that has a beneficial effect of doing that.
Your caffeine in that, Dr. Rutolo, can you address that?
Yes.
That's a big question.
Yeah, we've a number of times people have asked about caffeine, and some people think it's a demon, some people are negative on it, some people are neutral on it. Caffeine, in fact, is a naturally occurring material. It occurs in many bean type of things, like coffee beans, cocoa beans, guarana beans. It does exist in nature. It has an interesting stimulation effect on part of the adrenal function. We have made products without caffeine and with caffeine, identical side by side, and evaluated them and asked people what they feel. And I'll explain what caffeine does in a second. It's something like 15 to 20 to 1 people want the caffeine one. Here's why. Caffeine is not the stimulating effect. Caffeine is very short-lived. Caffeine has a very short half-life. So what caffeine does is has just an initial lift. That's gone in an hour. But what's not gone in an hour is the effect of elevating the chemicals in the brain by other nutrients. That stays 6-8 hours. So the only reason there is a small amount of caffeine is because people feel that initially I feel a better response with that. Now, you don't have to be drinking coffee like 9 times a day like some people do, because that's very short-lived. That's why people say, I got to keep drinking my coffee all day long, I got to stay awake. Well, if something actually elevated levels in the brain of something that keeps you mentally alert, you don't need it every 15, 20 minutes or half hour or an hour. But caffeine is very short-lived, but it has an initial effect that people feel acts quicker. The rest of the product works fine longer term, but when we've made versions of both. In fact, this exact product, we made versions of both. In fact, probably before most people in biomedics were aware of it, we evaluated this maybe 13, 14 years ago. And it set it out to a little focus group among some biomedics people in the very early days, and that was the response. So it is not that it's an unnatural thing. It is natural. It is not the active component that's there that does everything. It's clearly not, but it is an initiator, and that's what it does. It has an initiating effect on adrenal function, and so you get sort of an immediate effect. But the rest works after that.